Every breath you take costs money to a dead man. You are paying interest on a world you didn't build. The steel beams holding your office ceiling were forged in his fires. The railroad tracks under your morning commute were laid according to his maps. He built the skeleton of the modern world. Every day, you are still paying rent to live within his vision. $1.20 was all he had in his pocket when he stepped onto American soil. $370 billion is the staggering scale of the empire he left behind. This is not a simple rags to riches story. This is a cold, calculated system hack of reality itself by Andrew Carnegie. But school books skip the most important part. The moment that changed everything happened when he was 13, watching his father cry in the mud. 1848, Pittsburgh was a dark maze. A skeletal boy steps off a Scotland ship, looking for a hope that didn't seem to exist. His father was a master weaver who once fed his family with pride. Now, those hands were empty, crushed by the gears of the Industrial Revolution. The machines had arrived with a vengeance, and they didn't negotiate. Young Andrew watched a 40-year mastery become obsolete overnight. That image burned into his brain like acid, a permanent scar. He realized then that hard work alone was not enough to survive. Most people would have surrendered to the tragedy. But Carnegie made a vow that day. I will never be replaced. I will own the machine. His first job was a nightmare in a cotton mill. 12 hours a day in a room that reeked of grease, sweat, and despair. His task was soul-crushing, changing bobbins on spinning machines until his hands bled. He earned a mere $120 a week for this torture. At that rate, it would take a millennium to buy a modest home. This is the brutal truth. Hard work alone is not a ladder. It's a cage. But while others saw a cage, Carnegie saw a blueprint. He began to dissect the architecture of power while others cursed the gears. While others drowned misery in whiskey, he traced the money. Who owns the factory? Who reaps the ultimate profit? He wasn't just working a job. He was an infiltrator. He was conducting a masterclass in industrial intelligence inside the system that broke his father. At 14, he escaped the mill and became a telegraph messenger boy. $2.50 a week was still a pittance, but it wasn't about the wage. He wanted the access, the true currency of the elite. The telegraph office was the Google of the 19th century, the central nervous system of information. Every secret business deal and stock price flowed through those copper wires. Carnegie didn't just deliver envelopes. He memorized every word he saw. He mapped the power structure of Pittsburgh in his head. While his peers played, he stayed up all night teaching himself the language of accounting. He mastered Morse code so perfectly that he could read messages by sound alone. He no longer needed the paper tape to know the world's secrets. When a train wreck paralyzed the railroad, 17-year-old Carnegie stepped into the void. He forged the superintendent's name and issued direct orders. He rerouted the fleet and cleared the wreckage with surgical precision. In a single hour, he saved the corporation a fortune and proved his brilliance. The boss didn't fire him for the forgery. He promoted him. At 18, Carnegie was the master of the most critical division in the railroad. But the view from the top only made him hungrier. He began to see the invisible skeleton that held America together. The iron rails held the trains. But where did the iron come from? He tracked the supply chain from the mines to the final delivery. Then he made the choice that separates workers from legends. He stopped looking for a salary and started looking for leverage. He bet his savings on sleeping cars, oil, and bridges. He was building a web of influence, a portfolio of total dependencies. In the center of that web, he saw the ultimate missing piece: steel. In 1870, iron was everywhere, but it was a foundation of sand. Rails snapped and bridges buckled under the weight of progress. Humanity's ambition was hitting a physical ceiling, Because iron was too brittle, steel was the solution. But it was a luxury for swords and jewelry. It was too expensive and too slow to build a nation with. Carnegie's radical vision. What if steel could be as common as dirt? What if he could mass-produce the impossible? He found the key in the Bessemer process, a terrifying technology from overseas. It involved blasting molten iron with oxygen at temperatures that melt the soul. It was lethal work, and factories exploded regularly. Rational businessmen told him to stay away from this suicidal gamble. Carnegie looked at the fire and saw the future. He bet every dollar he owned on this one unproven process. In 1873, he poured his life into building the largest steel mill on the planet. Rivals laughed, waiting for the explosion that would end him. But he saw the bottleneck they were too blind to notice. Whoever controls the material controls the foundation of the century. In 1875, the furnaces roared to life, the heartbeat of a new civilization. Making 5 tons of steel now took 15 minutes instead of 2 weeks. He didn't just improve the factory, he collapsed the dimension of time. The price of steel plummeted by 80% within 5 short years. Suddenly, skyscrapers pierced the clouds and massive bridges spanned uncrossable rivers. The geography of the world was rewritten in steel. Carnegie hadn't just built a company, he had unlocked the gate to the modern world. And he was the only one with the key. Does this pattern sound familiar? A rare luxury suddenly becomes abundant and transforms civilization. Today, Jensen Huang and NVIDIA are forging intelligence and compute power instead of steel. They are building the new infrastructure of reality. It is the same playbook, just played out in a different century. The material has changed, but the strategy is identical. But Carnegie knew a secret. Making the product is only the first move. True power comes from controlling the entire chain from earth to sky. Rely on a supplier, and you are a hostage. Rely on others for transport, and you are just a passenger. If the market dictates your prices, you are a servant wearing a paper crown. Carnegie asked, "Why am I paying anyone else at all?" That question is the razor that cuts millionaires away from billionaires. It is the beginning of total dominance. Most companies play by the rules and act as middlemen. In a storm, middlemen are always the first to be crushed. Carnegie refused to be a middleman. He became the source, the river, and the ocean. He codified the iron triangle, the 3 laws of a monopoly. Look at the S&P 500 giants today. They are all disciples of these laws. They are hiding in plain sight. Law 1, total vertical integration. Own every step from the raw earth to the finished product in the customer's hand. Carnegie saw that iron ore and transport were his biggest leaks. He was bleeding money to other men. So he bought the iron mines in Minnesota and built a fleet of steamships for the Great Lakes. He didn't hire, he owned. He bought the railroads and the coal mines that powered his furnaces. From raw earth to skyscraper, he controlled every bolt. Andrew Carnegie didn't pay a cent of profit to anyone but his own companies. He was his own supplier and customer. Every stage was a profit center, capturing 100% of the value. When others raised shipping prices, his competitors died. But Carnegie just watched the money move from one pocket to another. He was the toll booth of his own empire. In 2025, the names have changed, but the iron triangle remains. Look at Tesla's obsession with building it all. Elon Musk bought lithium mines and built refineries. He manufactures the seats and owns the charging network. Why? Because he understands Carnegie's truth. Control the supply chain. Control your destiny. Without it, you are just waiting to be killed. While others are paralyzed by chip shortages, Tesla keeps shipping. That is the lethal power of the iron triangle. Law 2. Weaponize your costs. Turn efficiency into a blade that cuts through the competition. His mantra, watch the costs, and the profits will take care of themselves. He knew production costs down to a fraction of a penny. He once stopped a production line because workers were sweeping tiny metal shavings into the trash. He demanded to know their value. Those shavings were worth $8,000 a year, a fortune in the 1880s. He saw money where others saw dirt. He ordered collection baskets at every station. Not a single drop of oil or stray bolt was allowed to be lost. Rivals laughed at his obsession with pennies, but it was a weapon of mass destruction. He was preparing for total war. With the lowest costs in history, he dropped prices below his competitors' actual production costs. He invited them to bleed. He would sell at a loss for months, knowing his war chest was deep. Competitors bled out until they collapsed in the dust. Then, Carnegie would buy their factories for pennies. He got richer by killing his rivals and consuming their remains. Law 3. Own the infrastructure. In the 1880s, it was railroads. In 2025, it is compute power. Meet Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, the new Steel King. He isn't just selling chips. He's selling the only ticket to survival. Carnegie knew steel built the city. Jensen knows GPUs build the future. But NVIDIA owns something far more lethal. They own the ecosystem, the software rails upon which all intelligence must run. They own CUDA, the language developers spent lives learning. Want a cheaper chip? Go ahead, but you'll have to rewrite every line of your AI code. Good luck with that trap. It is a moat filled with digital sharks that no one can cross. It gives them absolute pricing power over tech giants. But even this empire has a crack. NVIDIA depends on TSMC to build their designs. This is the new battle for iron mines. The US government finally remembered Carnegie's lesson. If you don't make it at home, you don't really own it. The CHIPS Act is a survival mechanism to rebuild the iron triangle on American soil. They want total vertical integration once again. Apply the Carnegie test to your investments. Does the company own its supply chain, or are they just renting a bridge? In 1901, Carnegie sold his empire to J.P. Morgan for $480 million. It was the largest transaction in human history. Today, that is over $370 billion. He was officially the richest man to ever walk the earth, winning the game he started at 13. But alone in his mansion, he didn't feel like a winner. He felt a crushing, suffocating burden of responsibility. He realized wealth has two halves. Most people struggle to finish the first, but millionaires often get trapped in a cycle of greed. Carnegie wrote The Gospel of Wealth to haunt the conscience of billionaires. The man who dies thus rich dies disgraced. He believed wealth is a sacred trust meant for the benefit of all. Society gave you the conditions to build it. You owe them everything. Carnegie hated traditional charity. He believed handouts only create dependency. Handouts don't cure poverty, they make it permanent. So he built ladders instead of giving handouts. He funded 2,509 public libraries across the entire globe to change the world's mind. A library is infrastructure for the human brain, the ultimate leverage for a poor boy. He gave people the tools to catch their own fish. Carnegie built the steel skeletons for cities and the intellectual skeletons for the 20th century. He knew the next Carnegie would be found in a library. Today, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett follow this exact blueprint. The Giving Pledge is just the 21st century version of his gospel. Carnegie built libraries to fight ignorance. Gates built vaccine chains to fight death. It is the exact same DNA of infrastructure. What does this mean for you? The world is divided into only two types: consumers and architects. Consumers pay the toll while architects build the road. Right now, the roads of 2025 are being built again by those with vision. AI is the new steel. Your attention is the new iron ore. You can spend life scrolling and paying tolls to modern Carnegies, or you can start laying your own tracks. Build a system that others will pay to live within, and ask yourself the 3 Carnegie questions. Remember, Carnegie started with nothing but a library card and a dream. He understood the system, hacked it, then gave it back. Stop being a passenger in someone else's vision. Go out and build your own road. The Carnegie Code is now yours to execute.